With our society rapidly growing into the industrial era, it is often that our wildlife is forgotten about. Founded in 1979, the African Fund for Endangered Wildlife, commonly known as the Giraffe Centre, was formed as a breeding site for the endangered Rothschild giraffe. They also do conservation and educational programs for Kenyan school children. You are watching Talking to Almumin, Kenya's business show that lets you know what really is going on in the business world. I am your host, Maya Hayakawa. This is one of the female giraffes. This is Carrie, and this here is Daisy. At the Giraffe Centre, you also get a view of the founder's home. That is currently a hotel known as the Manor Hotel, and you can actually get a chance to feed the giraffes from the comfort of your own bedroom. So if you're looking for somewhere to stay, maybe a holiday, maybe a retreat, then the Manor could be an option for you. Please give us a brief history of the Giraffe Centre.
Thank you. Giraffe Centre, it's a conservation education centre that was started back in 1979. It was started by a couple, that was the late Jock Leslie Melville, his wife, the late Betty. And what they were doing then, they were going around the country and outside the country, giving presentations on conservation. So one day they visited the western part of Kenya, and that's when they discovered that the Rothschild giraffes were almost getting extinct, simply because they had lost their habitat to cultivation. And people had encroached into the forest where the giraffes were living, and they were also killing the giraffes to get rid of them. So when they found out that, they were determined to saving this subspecies of a giraffe. And what they did, they captured the first two giraffes on horseback, and they brought them outside their home, which is next to the Giraffe Centre. So they were taking good care of them, and at some point these giraffes grew and started breeding, and that's when now in 1979 they started or opened the Giraffe Centre with the aims of breeding these giraffes and sending young ones back into the wild to try and bring back the population, which had gone down from tens of thousands to about 130 by then. So once they started the breeding program later in 1984, they launched the education program so that people can also learn more about conservation, not only about the giraffes, but again, the whole wildlife in general.
What types of giraffes do we have here in Kenya, and what types of giraffes do you breed here at the Giraffe Centre?
In Kenya we have three types of giraffes. That is the reticulated giraffes. We also have the Maasai giraffes, and the third one is the Rothschild giraffes. The ones that we have at the Giraffe Centre are the Rothschild giraffes, simply because they are endangered. And our main aim is to try and breed them so that we can bring back the population.
How do you breed the giraffes, and do you release them back into the wild after breeding? Is it a difficult process?
It's a delicate one and also very interesting, because out here at the Giraffe Centre we have quite a big sanctuary for the giraffes. We have about 140 acres. You need that for them to breed naturally. And at each particular time we have between 10 and 12 giraffes. Right now we have 10 of them. So what happens is that we always have a dominant male and a number of breeding females. We call that a breeding herd, and they breed naturally. So you will find that after about 2 years, because the gestation period of a giraffe is quite long, it's between 16 to 18 months.
Wow.
We usually get a young one. And if one or two giraffes have the young ones, then we take good care of them for about 2 to 2.5 years, and eventually we introduce them back into the wild. We have to do some balancing act, because the age that you take them back into the wild is also very, very critical, because you can take them out when they are very young and they can be predated on much faster by predators. Again, you can delay and take them back into the wild when they are quite old, and they will have lost their natural instinct to start to be able to adapt out there. So that's why we have to make sure that by between 2 and 2.5 years they have to go. And so far since we started back in 1979, I can say the project or the programs have been very, very successful. The populations, we have seen them grow from lows of 130 back in 1975 to today about 350 of them in Kenya.
After you release the giraffes to the wild, do you monitor them, and how do you monitor them and see how they're faring in the wild?
Yes, we do monitor them, but not ourselves directly. We work very closely with the Kenya Wildlife Service, even during the translocation. And because we introduce them to well-protected parks out there which are under Kenya Wildlife Service, we are able to liaise with them, and every giraffe that we take out there, it's always monitored and we are assured that it's doing well and surviving well. We have examples of some giraffes that we took to Mwea National Game Reserve, and as always they have names, and at times we have gotten reports that they are doing well and they're having young ones, and every time people visit and they mention the name, the giraffes looks back to show that they can still remember their names.
Aside from breeding, you mentioned that you also do conservation education programs. Tell us a little bit more about the programs that you run here.
Thank you. As I said, Giraffe Centre is a breeding center. But one thing that we realized is that we can not only breed and introduce young giraffes back into the wild without education, because educating people is critical to make sure that they are able to understand the reason why they should conserve these animals. So we have a number of programs. One, we have the school visitation programs where schools just book with us and they come to learn with us on conservation. These schools actually come in free of charge. So long as they have booked with us between Monday and Friday, we allow them to come, and we make sure that every student who gets here goes home with a conservation message. We also have programs for their teachers as well. These are workshops, well structured. They usually take 3 days, and we teach teachers on how to actually teach environmental education and education for sustainable development as they teach the various subjects they teach in school. We also have brought in other groups. For example, we have community leaders workshops, particularly those coming from adjacent areas to protected or conservation areas. We bring them on board and we teach them also how to conserve, and most importantly on how to earn sustainably from the natural resource being wildlife that they live adjacent to. The other program that we have is for the visiting guests. We make sure that every guest that visits the Giraffe Centre also is given a presentation to do with wildlife conservation and much more about the giraffes.
All education programs offered to students are free of charge. The Giraffe Centre derives 90% of its funds from the entrance fee collected and from the sales in the gift shop and tea house.
The kind of giraffe I'm talking about is the Rothschild kind of giraffe. You identify it with its white socks. From the knee to the hoof is white in color. So in Kenya, the original home of the Rothschild giraffes was in Western Kenya, around this region. In the 60s and 70s, when there was population increase, their habitat was fragmented. By 1979, there were only remaining 120 Rothschild giraffes. So there was need to save them from extinction. What Jock and Betty Leslie did is that they were able to organize translocation of the remaining herd from Western Kenya to safer areas. So the herds were introduced in areas like Lake Nakuru National Park, and also a park in Western Kenya called Ruma Game Reserve, and some few reserved in the central part of the country.
Looking for something new to do? Then you should come one afternoon where you get to feed the giraffe and spend some time with them up close and personal. Not only would you be having a great time, but you also would be contributing to the conservation and protection of the Rothschild giraffe. Thank you for watching the show. For more information, then you can visit our website at www.talking2almumin.com. See you next time.